Hello guys, Shubhankar Mishra here, and last time we learned Unity, how to download Unity and some basic physics and how to add game objects to our scene. Today we're going to be learning some basic C-sharp scripting. Before I get started, I just want to say that this look that I have over here, this window, it's pretty this layout is pretty inefficient because I have to go continuously back and forth from the scene and game view. The hierarchy is to the left, and even though it's fine, the project and the console panel over here are pretty too big. Inspector is perfect. So to make this more efficient and more better looking, there's actually a standard professionals layout. It all depends on you guys if you would like to use this setup, but it all depends on your choice. So let me just show you guys how to do this. Get this scene over here, hierarchy over here, this project over here, get the console 2 over here, and this is the ideal setup if you want to do 2D, and this will be the setup that you want to work with if you are in 3D. And just make this inspector a bit smaller, this 2 a bit smaller, get this a bit higher, about middle, and yes, this is almost perfect. So this is how an ideal setup looks like, the professional layout, and let this drag this out a little bit. And remember to save this layout, just go here, save layout, name it anything, let's name it my layout, and save. So now when we go to a new Unity project, you'll always be able to use this, just go here and my layout. So this is basically the same layout I use over here, my layout, my layout. So now let's get started on the real thing today, scripting. So some people like it, some people don't. Let me just get this straight. Coding, programming, everything is easy. With this course, you will be able to program how to get references, add forces, get inputs from the user, etc. So let's get started. To add a script to this game object, go to add component and go down new script, and you can just add any name you want, like player movement. Or you can also go from here, create. Sorry, just go here, create folder. Let's name this scripts. Double click on this, create and C sharp script over here. And you can name it player movement. And there we go. Double click on this. And if you are on Windows, you'll either be working with Mono Develop or Visual Studio. And if you're a Mac, you'll be working with Mono Develop. I'll make another tutorial on how to download these idealies for C Sharp. But for now, let's just focus on programming. So this is how Visual Studio looks like, and at first glance, a lot of scary stuff is happening over here. What are these system functions over here? What is this mono behavior, start and update? Let me get this straight. This may look intimidating at first, but as you grow along with it, it'll become pretty easy to understand. So for now, we can remove these two namespaces. We don't need those. And let's just focus on start and update. So start is called before the first frame update, and update is called once per frame. That means starts before you have started the game. So once you run this, whatever code you have done here, like if you have made a code to make a cube through code, if you have told Visual Studio to make a cube, then it'll just make a cube over here and just do nothing else. It won't make cube after you have started playing. Or if you do it on update, you can access it whenever you want. So if you have with some input functions over here, such as like if I press W, then I want it to move forward, then we can access it at all times, and it's not just accessible before we start the first frame. This might sound complicated at first, but eventually it'll get easier and easier to understand. So now let's just focus on how to print out things in the console, and that's pretty easy to do. There's a simple code called debug.log, which basically prints out messages you want to say, such as if I tell this to print out hello world over here, then it'll print hello world over here. To write this, it's pretty simple, just write debug.log this and write hello world or anything you want. And don't forget to put this over here, otherwise it'll throw us an error. Go back over here and add this player movement script to the player. So we can either add it through here, or through here directly, like that. So now when I run this, it did nothing over here, but if I go to the console, then it shows hello world, as you guys can see. And if let's say I forgot to put this over here, and I save this by Control S, go back, and I run this, it won't allow me to run this. They have to be fixed, and it also throws an error in the console, and it shows us in which line the error is at. So the console can be used for printing up messages we want to show to the user, or it can also be used to show the errors we have come across while doing this, while coding over here. So now as we are done with that, let's move on to the second important thing we have to learn, which is referring to an object or something of the player. So let's say I want to move this player over here. How am I going to do that? So when you want to move something, you'll have to refer. And before I start, let's just get this out of here. We don't need it anymore. Get this, and let's make some space over here. And let's say I want to refer to the, sorry guys, to the player over here. So let's say I want to refer to this player's rigid body. How am I going to do that? So if you already know a little bit of coding, you know that there are many different kinds of variable types, such as int, float, doubles, decimals, boolean values, strings, characters. The same way, we are this rigid body kind of thing over here is also the variable. So the syntax is somewhat like this. We're going to make it public because you want to access it from the outside. And now let's give this the variable which is of rigid body. So we'll store a rigid body in this variable, which is rb. And don't forget to put this over here. Let's save this, and when we go back to Unity, you guys can see that there's this rigid body slot over here, and we guys can pull this over here. And now whenever I refer to rb, that means I'm referring to this player's rigid body. Pretty simple, right? And there's another way to refer to a rigid body, which is with the start function. So let's just got void start. Get this private out of here. Go back over here, and just say if you don't want to refer to this from the outside, you don't want to pull this over here, and you directly want to get this rigid body from code. No worries. Just write private, or public is also fine. Private, and get this rb over here. That means now I'm inserting this with the thing, and now I'm getting a value for this variable container, which is transform dot get component. Get this over here, rigid body, make these two brackets over here, and control save this. So now let me explain what code I have written over here. So this is happening before I have started this game. That means it's already getting the value of this rigid body. And this transform I've written over here is actually this game object over here, this player game object. And from this player game object, I'm getting the rigid body component, as you guys can see over here. And so this is what we are doing. So we are inserting this rigid body component into rb. And let's say if this is not a rigid body, let's say this is a character controller, which I'll explain later in my later videos. Character controller, and get this over here. I save this, and now when I go back to Unity, nothing will happen. But what actually happened here is that as we don't have the character controller component added, So it's actually doing nothing. So this thing has actually become void. So whatever we do, nothing will happen. Even if we refer to rigid body and I want this rigid body to do this, do that, nothing will happen because we don't have this character controller installed on this player over here. And let's say if you give some other variable instead of the variable we have mentioned over there in private, then it shows an error. So it's such as game object, then it gives an error because this is the character controller type of variable and this is a game object over here, as you guys can see. So make sure the variable and the variable type and the variable we're going to enter over there should be of same types, game object. So now let's move on to adding simple forces in our program. To do that, let's first make a reference for our rigid body over here. Make some space. Public rigid body RB and control save this and go back over here. And before I do that, let's just refer to this over here, player rigid body. There we go. And now say this RB dot add force and enter brackets over here and this. So now what happened over here? Why is it showing us an error? Is because we need to add some parameters over here, the arguments. So in which direction do we want to add the force to? Where do we want to add the force? So let's say I want to be 0 on the x-axis, 200 over here, 500 over here. Notice how I separate these commas. Go back to Unity. Make sure everything is correct and there. And now when I run this, you guys can see I just added a force and now the cube was off in the distance. So yeah guys, this was some basic C# scripting. In next video we're gonna learn if statements and adding force through if statements. So thank you guys for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. Goodbye.